So now we finally know who the Golden Guard actually is. His name is Hunter, thus giving new meaning to the title of the episode, Hunting Palismen. And I'm going to be referring to him as Hunter from this point going forward because that is his name, and because I was kind of tired of just referring to him as the Golden Guard. We know he calls Belos uncle. We don't necessarily have confirmation that they're biologically related. I assume they are, because Belos talks about our family being destroyed by wild magic. And they do look quite similar to each other. Admittedly, we don't know much about what Belos actually looked like, but we see his hair, and it does look similar to the Golden Guard's hair. Sorry, Hunter's hair. It'll take a while for me to stop calling him the Golden Guard. Also, it's true that they both look quite similar to Philip Wittebane, which provides more evidence to the idea that Belos is Philip Wittebane, or if not, that he is very closely connected to Philip Wittebane. There's no reason, if you're writing this show, to make a character like Philip Wittebane have a story so similar to Belos, and look so similar to how we imagine Belos to look, unless A, you're making a huge red herring, or B, there is actual relevance to the comparison. Now, of course, it is possible that uncle is just a term of affection for Belos, which would be reasonable considering that Belos was the one who took him in. Belos was the one who made him something in this world where you're at a major disadvantage if you don't have magic. Belos is the one who gave him that staff that was so loaded with magical power. And of course we see that once Luz takes that staff away from him, all he has is his athletic ability, which is not nothing, but it's hardly enough to survive in this world. So one could see why he would call Belos that even if they aren't related, but I think it is more than reasonable to assume at this juncture that they are. Now the question we need to ask ourselves, whether they're biologically related or not, is why Belos decided to adopt the Golden Guard, Hunter, in the first place. It does not seem to have been a particularly affectionate gesture. The relationship between Hunter and Belos does not seem particularly warm. The first thing Hunter says to Luz about Belos at the end of Separate Tides is that the Emperor, Belos, is not a forgiving man. In this episode, we see for ourselves Belos' lack of mercy, his arrogance, his conceitedness, his unwillingness to consider any perspective outside his own. Hunter is a huge fanboy of wild magic. Now, what exactly is wild magic? It's not particularly well defined, but I assume glyphs count as wild magic. And wild magic seems to be a catch-all term for any expression of magic that does not fit within the rigid structures of the coven system that Belos imposed on the Boiling Isles after taking power. My favorite moments of this episode, Hunting Palismen, are when Luz and Hunter dork out about wild magic. They dork out about their magical knowledge and all the books they've read about magic. Before this point, there's been a lot of animosity between them, but that animosity quickly melts away, and they start respecting each other. They start enjoying each other's company for the first time since they've met. It's a delightful, lovely scene that really sets the stage for Hunter's very conflicted feelings about the two different paths stretching out before him. One path being Belos and the Emperor's Coven, the other path being rebelling against that path and going with Luz. Hunter does care about Belos, and he wishes to use wild magic to help Belos, but Belos utterly rejects that idea. There's not a lot of kindness that seems to exist between Belos and Hunter, nor do they appear to be particularly similar. Hunter has a lot more in common with Luce, as we see in Hunting Palismen, than he does with Emperor Belos. Like Luce, he's a powerful witch who enjoys learning, but also like Luce, he's an awkward dork who has good intentions but stumbles over himself in executing on those intentions. He genuinely does want to do the right thing, whatever he believes that to be, and the little Cardinal Palisman takes affection toward him. This little Palisman really starts to care about him. And by the end of the episode, the Cardinal Palisman has joined the Golden Guard, Hunter. This development makes me rue the prediction I made in my previous video on Hunting Palisman. I thought that it was going to be Luce who got that Palisman, as a lot of people did. I spent a lot of that video considering the possibility that the character previously known as the Golden Guard would get that Palisman, but then I rejected that idea based on some, I suppose, rather flimsy evidence, such as that the Golden Guard is very owl-themed, so why would he get this Cardinal Palisman? Perhaps his getting this Palisman does represent a change in him. This is the first time we see his face. He's very much moving away from this whole Golden Guard persona and toward who he actually is, Hunter. This kid just trying to figure out his life in this magical world when he is not a magical person. Also, I love that the Cardinal has the same scar as Hunter does. It reinforces the similarities between them. And that Luce does not get that Palisman is not necessarily a bad thing, because it means she gets to carve her own, just like Ida did before her. Luce gets to individually decide the path she wants to go on, instead of taking a predestined, preordained track, which very much tracks with the person Luce has been throughout this show. Also, and I realize this might be frivolous, but I'll note it nonetheless, if the show had not already spent so much time developing Lumity, there would be a lot of fans clamoring for a relationship between Luce and Hunter. I know fandoms enough to know that. I come back to what I called Fagin's Law in, I believe, my Marsan video, which was that the longer a fandom exists, the more likely it is to be consumed by shipping discussions. Thankfully, the presence and popularity of Lumity is going to head that off. I'm sure there will be people who pair Luce with Hunter. There always are people who pair this kind of stuff, especially since Hunter is the archetypical Byronic, oversensitive bad boy with a good heart. But since Luce already has Amity, and since there are so many people, including myself, who really love that relationship, I'm sure dissent will be limited. So, enough of all that. Let's go back to the main point of the discussion, which is, how will Belos use Hunter? What is his plan for Hunter? I have to believe that he has some malicious purposes for valuing Hunter as much as he does. I do not think it is just a matter of family bonds. Belos is dying. I think we can all see that. His condition is slowly deteriorating. The Palismen he consumes are a temporary solve. They help lessen his condition, but they cannot conquer that condition. It just keeps steadily getting worse. And as we see, without the Palisman energy, Belos becomes monstrous. And the only person who sees him in this monstrous form is the Golden Guard, which is interesting. Now, why does he give Hunter such a privileged position within his forces? it could be, I've heard suggested, that Belos is planning to use Hunter as a vessel to transfer his own identity into at a certain point. I'm not entirely sure that's true, but it's reasonable considering how Belos' physical form is decaying, and considering how his interest in Hunter appears more than merely familial. But of course, it's hard to say much about Belos' intentions at this point because we still do not know a lot of information about Belos. We still are left in the dark about his motives. His disdain of wild magic appears to be genuine. I don't think it's simply propaganda that he uses to get the other Coven heads on his side. I believe he genuinely does despise it, and because of that, he wants to go to Earth for both ideological and personal reasons. He believes earnestly that wild magic is something that needs to be shut down and contained and escaped from if at all possible. I don't know what he plans to do in the human realm once he does arrive there, but it's safe to assume that his intentions are not altogether felicitous. But, again, what does all this have to do with the Golden Guard? What does all this have to do with Hunter? What does he plan to do with Hunter? Why does he entrust this kid with his darkest secrets? Why does he care so much about this kid who cannot even perform magic? Why does he give this kid not only this majestic scepter, but such a high position within his ranks? This kid is not even much older than Luce. Surely he could have found someone else. There are only two options. One is that he genuinely does love Hunter and wants what's best for him, and I do not think we should necessarily dismiss this out of hand. I don't think Belos, while villainous, is this pure evil monster. I'm sure he has reasons for doing what he's doing that he believes are justified. Most people do. I don't think he's incapable of conveying tenderness or affection, but I also believe that the comment Hunter makes about the Titan having big plans for Hunter should be enough to raise our eyebrows and make us nervous. Now, this could just be Belos' way of speaking. Everything he wants, he says, is the Titan's will. I'm not sure if he genuinely believes that or not, but either way, it's a kind of fundamentalism, a kind of aligning one's own desires with those of a higher power that we should not take uncritically, of course. Even if he genuinely does believe what he's saying, which I think he might. But on another level, this could perhaps refer to a concrete plan Belos already has to use Hunter in some sort of arcane, surreal ritual. And I do not believe the results of this ritual would be good for Hunter. So it is probably better for Hunter if he leaves Belos and sides with Team Luce and the rest of the Owl House. I'm not entirely sure how, but Belos, Hunter, and Belos' ideas about how to journey to Earth are all tied in some way. And we don't yet know what that is, but I want to find out. I believe Belos is going to exploit Hunter for his own benefit, and that this is the most reasonable possible explanation of the tendency Belos has to elevate Hunter to the degree that he does. But how these pieces are going to fit together, we do not yet know. It'll be quite fascinating to find out, and I hope you tune in then, when I talk about those later episodes. So anyway, thank you all for watching. If you liked what you saw today, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Donate to my Patreon if you can and you want to see more videos like this. Keep watching more of the Owl House. It's a great and clever show. I love the rapport that they build between Luce and Hunter, and I can't wait to see where that goes. where will the Golden Guard decide to place his allegiances? Will Hunter side with Luce or with Belos? I am interested to see how that plays out. So anyway, tune in soon for my next analysis. It will be coming soon. That I promise you. Thank you all again. Adios, comrades.